and where it's everything real estate. Once again, I'm your host tonight. My name is Catherine Nanteza, and with me I have a guest, one you have seen before, and for those that had not seen him, he's called Architect Amara Andrew, a very good architect. I've seen some of his designs, but he will tell us more about himself. Andrew, you're welcome.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yes, we will be discussing, I think you're guessing by now, seeing where we are sitting. We are talking about kitchen and kitchen designs, kitchen trends, the history of kitchens. You know, we've seen different types of kitchens. Growing up, when I used to visit my grandma, the kitchen was outside the house and it was a different kind of set. But today, our guest will be taking us through all that. Why do you choose a certain type of kitchen? What are the trends right now? How effective or efficient is the design that you have chosen? We've seen African kitchens, Asian kitchens, English kitchens, but why should I bother? Andrew, tell us about the history of kitchens from an architectural point of view.
So, kitchen is a very interesting topic because primarily when somebody says kitchen, everybody thinks of preparing food and cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back in time, and let's just focus our discussion in Uganda, many of our parents used to have a hut outside their households or their homesteads where they would do their cooking. And most of the times you would have 3 stones and you place support. And because of the smoke, you want to keep the walls open so that the smoke can move out, right? Also in our homesteads, our parents then would do the washing. So you'd have 4 legs and a tray where you put your plates and your cups. So that's a bamboo tray. And then there is preparing the food. Most of the food is prepared from outside. So along the verandas, you get your matoke and peel. And that is your typical kitchen setting in our culture. Your cooking hearth, your tray for hanging and drying your utensils, and then a preparation area. However, over the years, as the families have begun to move to cities and towns, you can no longer build your hut, or you don't have that much space to play around outside with the cooking utensils. But also because of hygiene and sanitation, we have started to move the kitchen indoors and enclose it. And so in urban centers and in towns, you find that the kitchens have moved. So they have 2 spaces. You have the veranda space, but also you have the kitchen space. So over time, the space is now inside, and we've also begun to think about sanitation. So plumbing has to come in. So there's a lot of plumbing that has entered the kitchen space. Before, you would just throw your water outside there, and you would go and fetch water from the well, and that is it.
Could it be because it was dusty out there, so no one cared? The water would dry up very fast.
Not necessarily. I think our parents used to live in a system where you're one with the environment. So the water comes from the well, you use it to wash, and then you take it back to the ground. So it's more natural cycle. And use the sun to dry your utensils. So it was a very natural cycle. But when you're inside, we have altered the way we live, and there's so much artificial elements. So we now have to bring in the water. We also now have to bring in power. So that's another trend that has happened. The kitchen now has power and water. And we have improved the way we bring water into the kitchen over the years. Initially, we bring it in from the bottom, then from the side. Now we bring it in from the top. Same thing with electricity. Electricity is now a big part of the kitchen. And instead now we're getting a bit more high-tech. So we're getting into smart kitchens now, whereby you have your phone and you connect all your devices. So you make sure that all your devices are Samsung microwave, Samsung stove, a Samsung fridge, and they're all here, and you just click a button. And you can optimize and see your equipment. And see which one is using more power. You can turn off one. We've seen a couple of trends. Water is now entering the kitchen more. So we have more water in the kitchen. We have more of electricity in the kitchen. And we also have more of smart gadgets in our kitchens. our devices now are really high tech and they're interconnected. So you can view and monitor your usage on your smartphone. If you have your cookers, if you have your fridge, your microwave, your stove, you just have your smartphone and monitor the appliances. So that's another trend that we're seeing in the kitchen.
Wait a minute. How does a smart kitchen work? Like I can cook from my bedroom, turn on the microwave?
Yes. So the Internet of Things is a system where your gadgets and your devices are all connected.
Okay.
So the big advantage with that is you can monitor the performance of your gadgets. So you can see how much power your microwave is taking. You can automate and set timers. You can turn off one gadget or switch on the other. Just at a click of the button, you can control your devices.
Wow.
And when they are connected, then it helps you to optimize your usage. So, and I think that's a big plus for technology. The other thing that we notice with the kitchen is that more devices are entering the kitchen, because before, remember, our parents used to use a cooking hearth. You can dry the utensils and wash and then prepare. But the kitchen today has three core elements. You have a sink, that's very important. You have a fridge, that's very important. And then you have the cooker. So those three are the basic cores. Your cooker, your fridge, and your sink. And usually they are spread in a triangle so that you have some space in between them. If you put them too close, there's a bit of a clash.
Okay.
But we have some other devices that are entering the fridge, like the microwave, the percolator, the washing machine.
The dishwasher?
Yes, the dishwasher.
So that's
all those
also
gadgets now
entering.
are supplementing, and you find them littered.
Although in our African setting, I think we still find it funny to have a dishwasher. Like, it's a matter of,
Exactly.
Why do you need a dishwasher?
And the point that you make goes back to the basics. When you're planning your kitchen, you need to think about function. You need to ask yourself, how do you cook?
Okay.
First, answer that question. Before you begin to think or plan for your kitchen, ask yourself how you're going to use it. So answer the question of function. And look at your lifestyle. If you are a person who likes to fry your eggs, then think about that as you think of your kitchen. If you're a person who thinks that you will do a lot of washing, and it's the maid who's supposed to wash in the kitchen and you want to assist them, then you can put the washing machine in the kitchen as opposed to taking it to the wet areas or the bathroom. Yes, so function is a key driver in deciding how you plan your kitchen. If you are the kind of person who wants to eat as you prepare, then have your dining in the middle of the kitchen. If you are a traditionalist and you want to cook in privacy, then build 4 walls around your kitchen and keep a door so that no one cooks and you cook with privacy. But if you are a more trendy family and you want to entertain your guests as you cook, then you have something open so that your guests in the living room can see how the cooking happens. So function and how you use the kitchen will guide you. You need to look at your lifestyle, each family, each homeowner. Ask yourselves, are you going to really cook? Maybe you don't need a kitchen. Maybe you need just 1 or 2 meters of countertop, and that is it. You don't need a very large kitchen if you don't do so much cooking.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew. I'm enjoying this, but we are going to take a short break and we will be back. We will continue this conversation on functionality, effectiveness. We want to talk about costs, and then also the different origins of kitchen or cultures connected to kitchen and how to plan for that. We will be right back. Welcome back from that very quick break. Yes, I'm also eager to know more about the kitchens. You were telling us about functionality. Now I'm thinking of my Ugandan, background. As a Muganda, I want to press the matoke. I want to cook in banana leaves. And personally, I like the open kitchen, but I'm speaking for my people. Yes, there is a way we want that privacy and to handle our mess. And so you've seen that when constructing, especially, I was telling my Indian developers that when you're constructing for Ugandans, you need that other kitchen where they can keep their mess away from the fancy look, the countertops you're talking about. Could you say more about that?
Yeah, I think doing two kitchens should come out of necessity as opposed to the desire to satisfy public expectations. One should not live out of pretense. You need to look at the way you cook your meals. I mean, is there a way to marry the two instead of having the two separate kitchens? Or if you really must, then that's okay. But it needs to make sense for you as a household.
Yeah,
Also,
because
let's-
Andrew, there are people who don't use gas for certain foods. I know, like my mother would not want that matoke on a gas cooker. They feel like it should have that natural smell coming from the charcoal or even firewood, you know? So, and you're not going to carry your firewood to
As
this.
you say, it's very important, yes. So that means when you think of your kitchen, then you need to provide for those spaces. You need to provide a space for you to squat. You need to have a cooking hearth. Did you know that you can have hot coals and an eco stove in the kitchen? Actually, these days it saves a lot on energy, and the heat cooks the food much faster. And there are lots of contractors who can come and fit in for you an eco stove where you use hot coals. They are fired up by solar, and you cook. It's very clean, very safe.
They're like reusable?
Yes, the hot coals. Yeah. So once the heat gets into the hot coals, they will cook the food, and then after you have cooked, the heat dissipates from the coals. So it's not as costly as just using charcoal and charcoal. So there are lots of solutions that allow you to cook with the traditional aspects in mind, so that you can actually cook your matoke, because matoke can't be cooked on certain
We needed to spend a whole day on fire.
So there should be ways, and there are lots of ways for you to plan for those things in a kitchen. And those who are really determined can actually plan for them in one kitchen, as opposed to having two separate. However, of course, if the simplest solution is to split, then you split. But the point is, when you think about your kitchen, see how to accommodate those different needs. I mean, the way we cook local food is different. The way we wash is different. For example, you need a heavy duty sink because your mate is heating these saucepans on this fancy.
And these days, apartments and all these houses we are renting have those tiny sinks that
Yeah, so you need
are not
something
functional. Even the tap itself,
Exactly.
it's too close. You can't turn
Something
around
can turn,
the
and it's not as
dishes.
sturdy, so you will knock it and it will break. Or you need 2 bowls or 3 bowls because you need to put on
Rinse.
soap and then rinse. If you just place 1 bowl, that doesn't make sense. You need space to be able to cut the tomatoes or the onions. If you
The
don't have that
veggies,
space,
yeah.
then it doesn't work. You need to have a hood to take out the smoke. So function is very, very important. See what's happening there and make sure you plan for it. Don't just do a kitchen to look nice and neat and classy. And then when you come to cut, it doesn't work. For example, we have white marble that is not as sturdy. Usually black marble is really durable and strong, and you can cut all sorts of things.
Oh, that's the difference. I thought it's just a matter of choice of color.
You need to be careful as you choose the materials you use. For example, these MDF boards, for example, some of them don't perform well with water. So you need to be very careful where you use them. Hardwood is a bit better, but it costs a bit more, right? So think about those sensitivities, the function and the durability as you choose the materials you use in the kitchen. There was a time when we used to have concrete worktops, and then we discovered tiles. So then we started putting tiles on top, and then we discovered granite. So now we have granite, and we have a bit of money and marble. So we're dressing our kitchens with those. Before we used to use a lot of hardwood because that's what we had. But then when we started refining wood and sawdust and making these sort of plastic laminated MDF boards, so now those are very common because of the rich colors that you get. But it's a deviation from where we originally started. So all these new
Are they easy
explorations
to
materials-
maintain though? I've seen this peel off in
It depends on the quality. You have to be very careful with the quality because there are all sorts of boards out there. There is particle board, there is MDF board, there is block.
So
board,
which is the best?
there
And,
is,
like
hardwood. So they all have advantages and disadvantages.
start from the top to the
Um,
covering of the cupboards.
So of course, on the top in your worktops, you need something that is hard, and your options there. You could have a concrete top, you could have a wooden top, you could have a granite top, you could have something finished with terrazzo. But of course, the harder it is, the better, and stone usually is the hardest. So something with marble or granite is hard.
Mm.
Then the other options, which are modifications, are not as hard. So of course it's better to get something harder for your tops. Then for your shelving and your cabinets, of course hardwood I think would be the best because it is natural. So you notice that the more natural material is, the better it is. If you have a stone slab, that's the best. If you have a wooden, good hardwood,
And then
cabinets,
inside,
that's the best.
inside the cupboards, especially around the sink, you've seen that most people fidget with how to work out the inside, especially below the sink. You find that sometimes the sink is leaking or that space is wasted. How does one utilize that space under the sink, and how best can we handle that to avoid cockroaches and molds or peeling paint, you know?
Well, a couple of things. One, it's important that when you're doing your kitchen, you get the right advice. There are lots of experts, there are architects out there, interior designers, who can help you plan a kitchen. Some people just think you put boxes together and that is it. It doesn't stop at that. You need to ask yourself, where are you going to put your wine? Where are you going to put the spice racks? Where are you going to put the linen? Where are you going to put the big pots? For example, you may need a larger drawer for your pots. You may need a thinner drawer for your cutlery, right? So all that thought has to be planned, and even the position is very important. But people just come and put boxes together and they think they have a kitchen. You need to think about your cabinet. So the planning is very important.
The heights also. You have cabinets you never use.
Yes, it's important to get the right input from professionals. That's number one. Number two, the services. When you think about the kitchen, there is electricity and water. And you need the plumber to plan right. Because where you're going to put the sink, for example, you need to position your sink properly. You need to make sure that the holes in the tops are in the right space. And then you need to make sure that the fixing is firm and done properly, the right, so that there are no leakages. So if you have a terrible plumber, or if he hasn't thought about the hot water underneath there, or to separate, some people these days separate their plumbing lines. Water from the toilet water from the sinks is taken to a separate socket to optimize the usage. So, and if you don't have the input from a proper plumber or a good mechanical engineer, you will miss out that opportunity. Same thing with the electricity. Some people put the sockets too high up, they're covered by the cabinets. So the heights are very important.
And you can't use them.
Yeah, what's the right height for your sockets, for your devices? For example, where you're going to have a stove, you need a particular type of socket. Yes.
I've found in some houses where the cooker socket, they're normally different, is like in the wrong place.
Exactly.
And the cooker is this side. Exactly.
And that's a problem of either you didn't get the right professionals, architects on the job, or you didn't get the right contractor, or maybe the contractor didn't follow the plans, or maybe there were no plans at all. So all sorts of things.
Yes.
It's missed opportunities because, for example, when you talk about electricity, you can actually have task lighting in the kitchen. You can have lights underneath your cabinets that are just pointing to where you're working, where you want to cut the tomatoes.
Well, you want to see what you're cooking.
Yes. And then also don't forget about beauty. So the kitchen, yes, should be functional. That's number one. But it should also look great, right? Yes, so you need something that looks really smart.
These days we've adopted the open kitchen. And sometimes you enter a house and they are suffocating. Like whatever is being cooked it's like the whole house is being fried or being cooked. How do we prevent that and still have a beautiful open kitchen without having the smell and the smoke going into every room?
Well, for smoke, you need ample ventilation. That's important. So it's good to have.
Is it the angling of the kitchen also, or the positioning of it?
You need at least to have a window. Yes, you must. You can't have a kitchen without a window. Actually, it's against the building code. If you have a kitchen without ventilation, that's not good. But you can improve your ventilation by having a hood. So a hood is usually placed over whatever you're cooking, and then the fumes can go into the hood and can be taken outside through a duct.
Okay.
You can actually also have some kind of suction effect depending on the type of hood you have. You turn on some power and it
sucks out the fumes.
So it extracts the fumes and takes them out. So ventilation is important. But then when you're also planning your kitchen, think about how open you want it to be, depending on your lifestyle. If you're the kind of person who doesn't mind an open, for example, you're a bachelor.
Yeah, or you want to
and
talk to
don't
your
mind
friends as you
cooking
cook.
in the bedroom, the bedroom is there and it's the kitchen. It's okay, you can plan what we call a studio apartment, where the kitchen is open to the rest of the space. But here, the arrangement of the space is important. It's the way you bring the space together.
Okay.
Make sure that the pathway, the connections are in the middle and not towards the boundaries. That's
Okay.
the trick with planning space. If you put your movement lines on the boundaries of space, it will still feel
Squeezed in.
squeezed, yes.
Okay.
So it's very important how you bring the spaces together.
Before you forget, also, I've seen the islands in the kitchen these days. Where is it a way of removing the dining, or it's what's that?
Well, it is a practice of people departing from the way we used to eat, right? So most of the families in the 80s and the 90s adopted this European culture of having a dining, where you sit around, you say a prayer, and you eat together, right?
But also in Africa we had that.
So, I mean, our forefathers didn't have dinings. I mean, they would sit outside in the compound, or in
But
the
still
living space.
together.
Yes, still together. So we had living spaces, we had cooking spaces outside, but we really didn't have a dedicated dining. So we had verandas where people would eat, courtyards where people would eat. Yes. So dining is, strictly speaking, sort of an urbanization concept, right? Yes. So, and we have had it for some time, but more recently, people begin to ask themselves, do I need a dining? Maybe I could have a breakfast. I could take my breakfast on a breakfast bar in pots. Or I could have the dining as part of the kitchen, right? Or I could have it towards the side. And I think that fundamentally comes back to you as an individual, you as the homeowner. Do you want to sit down with your children and have dinner or not? If you don't need to, then don't have the dining. But if you want to, then provide the dining.
Some things look compulsory,
kind of. It's not compulsory. It depends on your. At the end of the day, you should do something for yourself.
Okay.
Yes. So look and ask yourself, do you need a breakfast bar? Yes or no? Are you going to serve wine over it or not?
Andrew, this has been a very interesting conversation. I know our time is fast spent, but in 1 minute, if we could just differentiate between the African kitchen, the Asian kitchen, the English kitchen, like where is the difference?
I think the kitchens represent our culture. For example, one really good example is in Europe, you would find the washing machine in the kitchen usually.
Why?
And the kitchens are smaller. They have begun to accept that it's not all about huge sizes. So their space is a bit more confined. Whereas in America, for example, space is very important. They have really large, generous kitchens, and you won't find washing machines in the kitchen. They have a basement or a dedicated space in the bathrooms where you have washing. Whereas when you go to maybe Asia, it's more a separate structure, an outdoor, and it is closer to the ground. So the Asians live much more closer to the ground. They don't have these kinds of chairs for some of the families. They have stools and mats, and they sit down. When you come to Africa, of course, cultures vary. For example, if you go to the middle of Africa, they all come round a table, and that's where the serving happens, and it's very important for them. Of course, when you talk about Uganda, I think if you go into the urban setting, yes, you can see the debate between modern and tradition. People want to be hyped up and want to have a good modern kitchen, but they still think they need a small kitchen outside. Right? So you will see that debate in many of the households.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andrew. I didn't know kitchen would have a lot of content. Yeah, I feel like there is still more that we could have covered on kitchen. And to our dear viewers, thank you for staying with us. We are here at Footstep Furniture. If you want the best furniture for any part of your space or your house, you come to Footsteps. From Catherine and Andrew and the rest of the crew, see you next time.